Welcome to episode 17 of the Subway Conversation Chat. I hope that you all had a chance to enjoy the MLB All-Star game last night with the American League beating the National League 5-3. Hello, my name is Jamie Malloy, and I'm here to discuss some Yankees-Mets baseball with everyone. But first, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Joe Dallio. So without further ado, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
It is going excellent. How you doing?
I'm great. About you? As we talked about backstage, we talked about the excitement of college football coming out and what the Yankees did in the draft, adding some more Paul Skeens-like arms in the bullpen, and talking about how we're not surprised the Yankees made the playoffs, but we're surprised that your Mets did, and now we're all ready to put this into a live show.
Yeah, that sounds good. A lot of good stuff going on. We're in the heart of summer. I kind of like this time of year, because it's the pure focus is on baseball. Yes, you got some soccer and women's basketball going on, but pretty much baseball is in the spotlight. Now, again, I love other sports too, but again, a special time of year with just the focus on Major League Baseball and a lot of great stuff happening. It's been an amazing season so far. So very happy to talk about it and, kind of look back a little bit and look ahead as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to start out this week with the injury report for the New York Yankees. And we begin with Anthony Rizzo. Can't beat the Riz. While Rizzo is still limited, excluding some lightweight workouts, as he bounces back from his right forearm fracture he experienced on June 16th in Boston. On July 12th, Rizzo told the Yes Network that he was feeling good and that the bone was healing. He's feeling good as hell in his best Lizzo impression. It's definitely progressed a lot. Still some pain, but that comes with a broken bone, Rizzo said. Definitely on the way to recovery and really excited to get back on the field and enjoy the game. Next, we're going to move on to Giancarlo Stantonian home run. Anyway, Stanton has continued working out on hitting and base running drills. Even though the outfielder won't be ready to play the first game Friday after the All-Star break, manager Aaron Boone stated that Stanton should be really close at that point. Boone went on to say that the organization hasn't decided yet if Stanton will take on a minor league rehab assignment. Last year, Stanton only played in one minor league rehab game before re-entering the big leagues. As the Bombers do not need the slugger to play the outfield, he could practice using the high-tech device called the Traject pitching machine that was talked about on the Yankees game Sunday versus Baltimore. So now let's turn it over to Joe for some Mets updates. Joe?
All right. I got to give you kudos there, Jamie. I love the Lizzo reference when talking about Rizzo. That was a good one there. So well done. Not much to talk about here again with the short week, with the All-Star break and everything like that. But just a couple of quick little tidbits. Again, we mentioned this name before, Shintaro Fujinami. I'd be curious to see how he does. Now, he's made a couple of rehab starts in Syracuse, gave up a hit and a run, 3 walks, not very impressive. He's got an ERA over 8 so far. And, he's pitched with other teams before, but his overall ERA in Major League Baseball is like 7.25. So we haven't really seen anything much from this guy. Impressive anyway. So I'd be curious to see, how, the Mets, if they bring him up and if the Mets use them and how they use him. Again, they could certainly afford pitching depth. They already have excellent starting pitching depth. But that's basically it. I mentioned the name Joey Lucchesi last week that the Mets had designated for assignment. Looks like that assignment is going to be Syracuse, AAA there. So, again, he was somebody I think that they factored in as far as thinking maybe he could be in the rotation. He's got a lot of traffic in front of him, but again, just he designated for assignment last week and officially in Syracuse now, and we'll see what happens with him. But really, again, not too much to talk about there. Now, even though there were a few games last week, maybe a couple less, Jamie, why don't we send it back to you and tell us how the Yankees did last week and some of those games and player updates and things like that.
Well, they took 2 out of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles, which was good, but it should have been a sweep because what is going on with Anthony Volpe recently? For the first couple months this season, there was actual thought and talk about Anthony Volpe going to the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
He once was a budding third castmate, to his lead actors Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, who made the AL All-Star roster. But the second-year shortstop has fallen from grace since then, especially with his latest blunder. With 2 outs and runners on first and second for the Orioles, Volpe scooped up the ball for what it looked like an easy game-ending out. But he slightly bobbled the ball, which allowed the game to continue. The Yankees would then lose 6-5 on the next bat that most likely should have never been. Joe, do you think the Yankees should discipline Volpe for a couple games heading in the thing? Because I know the announcers say it's a play that he makes 99% of the time, but he's kind of done this twice in games now.
Yeah, I don't think a player like him, where the announcers are right. It's very rare that he makes those kind of mistakes. It just so happened to cost him a game here. I don't think he should be disciplined. Just obviously, if you keep making those kind of mistakes in big spots, then, you might be, end up getting replaced in late innings, which is something you don't want. And I'm sure the Yankees don't want to do that. But, he's a very good player, made a couple of mistakes. He's in a slump. And, I think they should just attribute it to that. You don't want to shatter the kid's confidence. Everybody's going to have, periods like that. So I think he's done a lot more good for that team than not. Hopefully this doesn't become a habit and something that happens on a regular basis. But I honestly, I don't think there's any need for any, disciplinary action or benching or anything like that.
Right, exactly, Joe. That's the whole point of this in the first place. It can't be a habitual thing. As long as he cleans it up and learns his mistakes in the second half of the season, then everything should be fine. So,
right, they have a lot of days off, so he's had a lot of time to think about it. So I'm sure he's thinking about it, and definitely committed to making sure that doesn't happen going forward.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, now we're going to talk about the Yankees-Orioles brawl. Things got a little out of hand between a clash of AL East rivals. New York Yankees closer Clay Holmes clipped Baltimore Orioles left fielder Heston Kjerstad in the helmet. This led to a bench-clearing brawl. The brawl was escalated by Orioles manager Brandon, nowhere to run to, baby, nowhere to hide. After checking on Kjerstad, Hyde charged towards Yankees catcher Austin Wells and shoved him, which that makes you look really cool as a manager, right?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, when the dust was settled, Hyde was ejected and the Yankees won. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on this brouhaha between the bitter AL East rivals and the manager kind of being a poor sport, at least, I think?
Well, that's exactly what it is. Just the manager being a poor sport. These are the rivals for the year. I mean, they've always been division rivals, but they're the 2 best teams in the division, 2 of the better teams in the American League going head to head. They've played a lot of baseball going in, before the All-Star break here. So, it just came to a head, and you get 2 teams that want to win a division here, and the other team is in each other's way. So it just came to a head, and that situation caused it to explode, and it did. But again, I see it as just 2 teams that want to win and are going to be going head to head pretty much through the end of the regular season.
Yeah, and to your point, they are bitter rivals, and it's funny. Yankees analyst guy Jeff Nelson was talking about how back in 1998 when he played for the Yankees that there was a brawl that was much worse when they were battling out for first place, and the Yankees ended up being the best team in baseball and won the World Series. I don't know what he was comparing it to because that wasn't started by a manager.
Right.
But anyway, now we're going to move on to the Yankees carousel of pitchers that they used in the MLB draft this past Sunday, not in free agency, led by a guy named Hurd. You heard? Anyway, as they say in baseball, you can never have enough pitchers. This is especially true nowadays with the Paul Skeens and the other flamethrowers making the big leagues very quickly, almost out of college and even right out of AAA once they make it out of college. The 2024 Yankees draft is no exception. Of their first 10 draft picks, the Yankees used 8 of them on flame-throwing pitchers that will be developed through the farm system. Or if they get lucky, maybe their first rounder makes it as a rookie. Their first round pick was highlighted by Ben Hess, right-handed pitcher from Alabama, and second right-hander Bryce Cunningham in the second round at 53rd overall. But one of the highlights was in third round selection, Thatcher Hurd, 6'4", 230 pounds, flamethrower out of LSU. And I'm going to remind you, Joe, who came out of that school, LSU? Paul Skeens.
Out of it, the guy you were just talking about, you know, the Mr. Skeens.
Mr. Skeens, kind of like Mr. Clean. But anyway, the car wash is for another day. Anyway, we'll move on to and we had another one was in the 5th round selection, Grayson Carter. This is a guy I was telling you about, Joe. They took it 152nd overall, Vanderbilt, and he can throw up to 103 miles an hour.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, Joe, what do you think of Brian Cashman's draft strategy of just drafting a bunch of Paul Skeen wannabes and like Nolan Ryan flamethrowers if they saw what happened to Paul Skeens this year? Cashman said, hey, we need a lot of those now.
Yeah, no, I don't know too much about those guys. You know, even the Mets draft picks, I'm not familiar with at all, I'll be honest with you. But, you know, I think what Paul Skeens showed is that players can come directly from college or, you know, or spend little time in the minor leagues there. So I think people have that on their mind, like who's going to be the next Paul Skeens. And like you said, you can never have enough pitching. And do you remember when it was like we were wowing when people were throwing the ball 100 miles an hour? Like, oh my goodness, this guy could throw the ball 100 miles an hour. That's like unheard of. Now we're talking about 103. That's just absolutely crazy.
That's the number that Mason Miller's already pitching up to, the closer of the Athletics.
Right.
But a fourth round rookie throwing 103, that's even more impressive.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I think as a Yankee fan, you could trust what Brian Cashman is doing. And again,
I do. I don't listen to the Debbie Downers who say he's not a good GM. He is a good GM. He's been there for a long time.
I think he's proven that he is. And again, if I was a Yankee fan, I would certainly trust him. You know, I think a lot of people, not just the Yankees even, teams around Major League Baseball thinking that, again, like, who's the next Paul Skeens? Who's the next impactful pitcher that's going to do what he's doing and come right out of college, you know, maybe out off a national championship or College World Series or things like that. So I think it's on a lot of people's minds, you know. So I think it'll just, obviously it's going to take some time to see how these guys pan out. But like I said, Yankees fans, they may not believe me, but I think you could trust what the GM is doing. And I think he's got a positive goal in mind there.
And even before the losing streak, this is the same team he created. And don't forget, Jason Dominguez was drafted by him, right? And he's shown that he could do. Emerson Pereira, Ben Rice was drafted by him.
Yeah.
Austin Wells was drafted by him. So a lot of these prospects you're seeing now are still because of him. So
Exactly. And again, look at what he's done throughout. I know they haven't won a World Series in 15 years, but I don't think that's much on him. He's doing things the right way.
right, and like I said, the Yankees are one of those teams they've always believed in continuity, and they're still sticking with that, with
Mhm.
having Aaron Boone being there for 8 years and Cashman still there. So
Right.
they believe as long as they keep the continuity, they'll get back to where they want to be, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
So anyway, let's talk about Nestor the Bester Cortez.
Mhm.
On what he said about social media. Anyway, Nestor Cortez is firing back at Yankees haters, or as I call them, wannabes on Twitter. The lefty pitcher posted on X, everybody talks down about the Yanks, but they want to be us. It's a privilege to wear pinstripes every year because we're in contention every year. The pitcher needed to defend his team from online keyboard warriors who, no matter what you say or do, you're never going to please them. Nevertheless, the Yankees enter Friday, one game behind the Baltimore Orioles for first place, and the second AL wild card race by 3.5 games. It stings. The Yankees were 1 out away from being 1 game ahead, but Anthony Volpe's little blunder cost them at the next at bat. Joe, what do you think of Cortez feeling the need to go onto Twitter to defending his team from these ex trolls and keyboard warriors who just want their voices to be heard, and even if you type positive things, they're just never going to be happy. Do you think he even needed to do that, or no, and should have been the bigger person?
Yeah, I see where he's coming from, and I like the fact that he's defending the team, and he's right. I mean, the Yankees, um, there's a lot of positive there. And I don't think as a baseball player, though, or any professional athlete, that you have to shoot back on social media and get into battles with that. So I disagree with that. But at the same time, again, I like the fight. I like that he's defending the team, and again, you got to let those people just talk. Let them shoot their mouth. Let them say what they want to say. You don't have to believe it, and he obviously doesn't, and he believes in his team, which is great. But let it go. You don't have to respond to that.
Right, exactly. And speaking of potential shortstops to eventually replace Volpe if this continues, Joe, we came up with a story. My producer and we came up with a story that's going to probably blow your mind. And Yankees and Orioles fans, get ready for this one. You might want to sit down for it. This past Monday, Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge, before the All-Star game at Globe Life Field, talked to reporters. The home run hitter was asked to choose an opposing player that he would like as an teammate. His answer, Baltimore Orioles shortstop. Yes, that's right, Gunnar Henderson. And we have a quote here from Mr. Judge. Seeing what he's doing for them, they're in first place, doing their thing. Just impressive to watch at bat after at bat, said Judge. He works his walks. He plays great defense. He hits the ball out of the ballpark, hits for average. Great instincts on the base paths. Man, he's a special talent for sure. Why wouldn't Judge want to team up with Henderson? He already did for the All-Star game. The Orioles shortstop has batted .286 with 28 home runs and 63 RBIs during 95 games before the All-Star break. Given that the 23-year-old has been the biggest up-and-coming player thus far, I don't see the Orioles wanting to part with him anytime soon. So, Joe, do you think Judge might have made a good pick here? It sounds unrealistic, though. But it would be so exciting.
It ain't going to happen. But I'll tell you what are there, like 750 Major League Baseball players out there? You ask all 750 of them, and they're going to say they want to play with Gunnar Henderson. Of course they do. He's one of the most exciting players in the league. Great guy, only going to get better. So I don't blame Aaron Judge for saying that, but like if I'm a Major League Baseball player, no matter where I am, of course I'm going to want to play with Gunnar Henderson. So, like I said, it's not going to happen. Now, you talk about some Orioles players and blockbusters. I've heard some things that I'll tease our audience right now that has been brought up about hot prospects, but we'll get to that later on. But again, Judge certainly would want to play with Gunnar Henderson, and so would all the other players in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see Gunnar going to the Yankees anytime soon.
Too bad for me. But anyway, Guess what, Joe? It is now that time for the question of the week segment. Would you like to give it a try?
Let's go.
Okay, Joe. Now this is another one where you have to. It's two players. Two answers are correct.
All right.
So anyway, here's your question: what two players tied for the MLB record of 6 Grand Slams in a single year? Is it A, Travis Hafner of the Cleveland Guardians, B, Alex Rodriguez, New York Yankees, C, Vlad Guerrero Sr. of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or D, Don Mattingly, also the New York Yankees? You got to get two here.
These people had 6 Grand Slams?
Yes, in a single year.
In a single year? Oh, my goodness. It could be any of them. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to have to guess. All right. Well, I don't think it was Mattingly. Mattingly hit some home runs, but don't think he had 6 Grand Slams. All right, so I'm going to say Vlad Guerrero. And who was the first name you mentioned?
Travis Hafner.
Travis Hafner. It could be. But I guess I'm going to go with the big boys here. You said Alex Rodriguez, right?
Yep.
All right, let's go with A-Rod and Vlad Guerrero.
Both of those are, unfortunately, Joe, both of those are incorrect.
No way.
It was Travis Hafner in 2006 and Don Mattingly in 1987.
I can't see Don Mattingly having 6 Grand Slams in a season. No offense to him. I mean, he was an amazing player. Hafner, as soon as I said A-Rod, I was like, yeah, why do I feel like it was Hafner? But I would have never expected Mattingly to be on that list. But excellent question.
But it's okay, Joe. You just got to expect the unexpected, right? I know that's a cliche, but you got to do it.
That's right.
Now, anyway, let's throw it back to you now, Joe, for some more Mets news. Joe, please take it away.
All right, we'll do that. Now, again, short week, so, not too much going on, but the Mets continue to play very well. Now, I'm going to include last Wednesday's game in this, again, especially since we got a short week here and the game was not over by the time we were done here on our podcast. So if you include that last Wednesday game against the Nationals, the Mets were 4-1 last week. And again, playing inferior competition, no offense to the Nats and the Rockies, but they've been playing extremely well against the Nationals all season, and the Rockies basically the worst team in the National League. So, I said this in the beginning that the Mets should have been going 4-1 against these teams. Playing at home, the Mets are playing much better at home. Granted, again, 2 of the lower rungs on the ladder here, but again, outscoring their opponents 32-19. So that's about 6-4. Now, the one game the Mets gave up 8. The game they lost to the Rockies there. So you take that out, and it's basically 2 per game for the other 4 games. So really, again, outscoring opponents 6-4, but that 8-run game was a little bit of an outlier there. So just to go over some stats again, these guys are crushing the ball, and it's not just 1 or 2 people. Check this out. I've never seen an OPS this high. Now, again, it's a week period that we're talking about here, but OMG. Jose Iglesias, he had 8 at-bats this week. He had 6 hits in those 8 at-bats. He had 2 solo home runs in those 8 at-bats. Imagine hitting home runs 25% of your at-bats. That would be crazy. His batting average was .750 this week. Now, check out this. His OPS 2278. I've never seen one that high.
What?
You know, 2278. And again, 25% of his hits were or a third of his hits were home runs, and 25 of his at bats were hits or home runs. So that might explain a 2278 OPS there. Incredible. So OMG, what a week for Jose Iglesias. Now, other people you would expect that. Francisco Lindor had a home run, 4 RBIs, batted .333. His OPS was 1162. Probably his best OPS week of the season there. Also, Lindor, and one of the factors with that is he walked 7 times. So he's getting on base that way. He's taking the walks, 7 walks in 5 games, stole a couple of bases, so taking advantage of that on-base percentage there. Excellent week for Francisco Lindor. Should have been in the All-Star game instead of Pete Alonso, but we already talked about that.
Yep.
Francisco Alvarez has cooled off a little bit at the plate, but no fear there because Luis Torrens, the backup catcher, getting some action here. He played in a couple of day games after night game. He had an RBI and a .946 OPS, so doing an excellent job and affording Alvarez some off days here. Other highlights here, Harrison Bader had 2 home runs, 4 RBIs this week. And again, this is in a 5-game spot here. .923 OPS, that's excellent. Now, Brandon Nimmo, the bad news is he only hit 176, but he still had 4 RBIs. So definitely, making the most of his at-bats here. He's the team leader still. He's got 63 RBIs, again, leading the Mets there. The closest to him is Lindor with 52. So Nimmo 11 ahead of them now. Alonso's got 51. And Alonso, speaking of him, also Jeff McNeil, Mark Vientos, each had 3 RBIs in the 5 games as well. So very solid hitting continues for the Mets, and hence they're, again, scoring 6 runs a game, and they've been basically doing that now for almost a month and a half. Pitching was quite good again. We talk about quality starts. Sean Manaea, 7 innings in his start, only gave up 5 hits. He did give up 3 earned runs, but again, if you're going to get 7 innings out of him, 9 strikeouts, which I'm not sure if it's a season high, but it's got to be close if it's not. And a .86 whip, which is excellent there. Now, David Peterson has been pitching well, but throwing a lot of pitches, and a couple of times he was winning a game, but got pulled like in the 5th inning. So he didn't get his win because, he didn't make it out of the 5th inning. This week's start, he went 6 innings, didn't give up a run and gave up 4 hits. So a good start there for him. Now, again, a good news, bad news here. Jose Quintana has been going deep into games, pitched 7 innings his last couple of starts, 5 2/3 this time. So, again, not bad. And he had 8 strikeouts. He did give up some runs, though, gave up 5 runs and 6 hits. So, again, a mixed bag there. Other good performances here, Jose Butto, he got a win, pitched 2 2/3 innings this week, only gave up a hit and a walk in those 2 2/3 innings. No earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and 2 2/3, .75 whip. They only hit 125 against him. Talked about a new arrival from Tampa last week, Phil Maton. He pitched a couple innings, did very well, gave up a hit and a run. So it must have been a home run. 4 strikeouts, though, in the 2 innings. That's very good. And a .5 whip, which is excellent. Daniel Nunez, 2 1/3, no hits or runs, and 3 strikeouts there. So quality. And Edwin Diaz got a save in his only save opportunity. So good stuff there. No complaints. So the Mets are now 49 46, doing well. They are actually in the playoffs if they would start today. So again, in the beginning of the season, this is what we were talking about. How long can they stay in this race and can they actually get in? And they're making more of a case as we go along. So, it's a crazy National League wild card race. There's like 8 teams, I believe, going after 8 teams within 4 games. That's what I meant to say. And again, the Mets are that third wild card team, a game ahead of San Diego and Arizona. So as we look ahead, they have a 4-game series against the Marlins. So again, another one of these teams that they should beat, the second worst team in the National League here, besides the Rockies. So 4 games in Miami. Let's go for 3 of those. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, they take a long road trip all the way to the Bronx to play the Yankees in the other 2 games that they have against them. So looking forward to that. Always great for the midseason Subway Series here. And that's what the Mets schedule looks like here.
You better hope the Mets are going to be, if the Yankees are popping the ball out of Yankee Stadium that game, you better hope the Mets are doing the same thing that I better see Nimmo, Alonso, and just for your sake, Nimmo, Alonso, all of them pop the ball out and hit a bunch of home runs too.
I was just going to say, right? It's Yankee Stadium in July. So what do you got to do to get it out? Just get it in the air. That's it. So looking forward to it. And again, it's as a Mets fan, I think you got to be happy with the way things are going. So that's basically it. I'll send it back to you, Jamie.
Well, thank you, Joe, for all that about the Mets. That was very informative. And back to the Yankees. Actually, this is more of a baseball news story around the sport. Is the traditional no-hitter going to be gone to protect flamethrowing arms? It looks like we're slowly but surely taking away a tradition that's been part of baseball for a long time. The no-hitter in baseball, where a pitcher allows 0 hits in 9 innings, is being reduced basically to nothing in society. Pirates rookie flamethrower Paul Skeens, as it always goes back to him. Right. I think he's the Taylor Swift of the MLB. Threw for 7 hitless innings and was pulled. This has happened to Skeens twice. The supposed reason for this is to protect young arms from being blown out since Skeens is a flamethrower. So, Joe, what do you think about, like we always talk about with a game being younger, you got to be more innovative with everything. We obviously got the stolen bases, the bigger bases that allow for more athleticism and the pitch clock. But we're also entering a new era where you have guys that throw harder and their arms get tired more. So what do you think of a tradition like the no-hitter slowly becoming a thing in the past in today's world of baseball?
Yeah, I think you already know what I think. And anybody who watches this podcast regularly already knows what I think. I hate it. Again, I want starting pitchers to go 15 innings if they needed to. So I love, again, the no-hitter is a special part of Major League Baseball. I mean, again, you got really nothing to compare that to with other sports. So I'm disappointed, and I hate the fact that you're going to see fewer and fewer no-hitters. Hopefully we never get to a point where it's completely gone, but I think we're going to see that. And again, you got a guy like Paul Skeens who is very Nolan Ryan-like, and has it seems like, again, when Nolan Ryan pitched, he could throw a no-hitter in any game. It just, you never knew when he was going to be on. And again, Ryan's throwing that kind of a game. He could throw a no-hitter today. Paul Skeens is proving that he's the same way, and anytime he takes the mound, sometimes you could just see it. This is one of those games where he has that potential, but he may never get that opportunity, unfortunately, because of the new, the way that these pitchers are handled. And just, I don't know. I hate it. And I wish it would go back to the way it was, but it's looking more and more like that's not going to happen. So hopefully the no-hitter doesn't become extinct, but it's looking more and more like it could.
But then, Joe, you also got to play devil's advocate too. Nolan Ryan, do you think he was lucky that even though he could throw 100 miles an hour, he never really blew out his arm? Because now these pitchers are throwing that, but you're seeing all these guys getting Tommy John surgery because they're blowing their arms out throwing 100
Right.
miles an hour.
But you know what? I think there's something to that. Again, just the way that these pitchers prepared before. How come Tom Seaver never blew out his arm? How come all those excellent Orioles pitchers, Jim Palmer and all those people, how come they never blew out their arms? Right? Nolan Ryan never did.
They also were throwing 100 before. Now everybody's doing it, though. That's the difference.
Right. And I understand we're in 2024 and it's a different type of pitcher and they all throw 1,000 miles an hour. I get that. But still, I just think they're babied so much coming up. And, that's
Exactly.
why you have all these injuries. So again, I can't deny 2024 Major League Baseball. And again, the fact that these guys are throwing it harder than they ever have, and again, I get that. But, I still like things the old way. And I think if they prepared them a little bit more and let them throw a few more innings before they came into Major League Baseball, I think we would see fewer of these injuries. I mean, were there players and good pitchers that blew their arms out, in the 70s and 80s and 90s? Of course there were, but there was a lot less and guys that threw the ball hard as well. So, it's catch 22 because they want these guys to get to the major leagues and they're afraid that they're going to blow out their arms and not get the opportunity to go to the major leagues. So they're protecting them there and making sure they don't get injured before that, because again, you're potentially risking millions of dollars. I get that part of it too. But just because I get it doesn't mean I have to like it. And I wish, again, that they would let them throw more innings earlier so that by the time they get to the major league level, they're ready. I think I was reading somewhere too. Yeah, I mean, it used to be commonplace to have starting pitchers go over 200 innings. And I think it was last year, 2023, that there was like 3 pitchers, I think, that ended up going over 200 innings. I should have studied the list a little closer to see who they were. I wouldn't be surprised if Garrett Cole was one of them. But I think there was only
Young. What do you think?
3. Yeah, that's he probably was. But if I'm not mistaken, and if I read that list correctly, there was only 3 pitchers that went over a certain amount of innings there, probably 200. So, again, prepare these guys a little earlier, and then maybe you won't have some of these injuries like we see now.
Right, exactly. Moving on, let's talk about a young hitter for the Cincinnati Reds named Rhys Hines. Cincinnati Reds slugger Rhys Hines etched his name into the MLB record book, homering twice against the Miami Marlins on Saturday. After hitting a 430-foot home run off starter Edwin Cabrera in the 3rd inning, Hines took reliever Andrew Nardi deep in the 6th for another round tripper, which went farther, 454 feet. Hines' 5 home runs are the second most by a player in their first 6 major league games. In 2016, Trevor Storm with the Colorado Rockies hit 7 in 6 games. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on Hines making history as a young MLB player in something that hasn't happened in almost a decade, but it finally did?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, actually. So I'm just hearing about that today. And, I do know the Reds have a lot of good young players, too. Again, another one of those teams that are just developing players and doing things the right way and have a good, exciting team there. Maybe not ready for prime time yet, but, performances like this and, guys like De La Cruz and people like that, I think this is going to be an exciting team going forward. But good for him. And again, it's always good to see historical performances like that, and hopefully he can continue his success.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's move on to now the top MLB players to look at before the trade-off cut date. Now, audience, the reason why we're doing this is because I write an article. I wrote an article and it got published for the forkball.com, the sports website I work for, this week, and I sent it to Joe to read. And he liked it and he said, hey, let's talk about it on our show. So anyway, he thought that the 8 MLB trade candidates to look at before deadline was worth talking about. Thank you, Joe, for liking it and being the reason why we're doing this segment. So here it goes.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay, so we start out with, now, guys, I know this might sound repetitive, but the 3 people we're doing are Chicago White Sox players. So don't be surprised if you heard these names before. And we sound like broken records, broken vinyl records to be exact. But anyway, number 1, we have Garrett Crochet, who we love to talk about on here, White Sox, left-handed pitcher. Crochet displays an interesting body of work filled with ups and downs while with the White Sox. He debuted in 2020, his rookie season, with the southpaw heading straight to the White Sox. Kind of an uncircuitous route, if you ask me, for a rookie pitcher. Therefore, the 25-year-old did not have to start in the minors. After being in the bullpen in 2021 and missing all of 2022, the recovered Tommy John surgery pitcher broke out as the best pitcher of the worst rotation in the MLB. Time will tell where Crochet goes, but I wouldn't be shocked if he returned with the Sox. No team wanted to acquire him. Well, the Yankees could. The Yankees have a plethora of guys coming off of Tommy John surgery, so he would fit in right there.
Yeah, fit right in with all of them.
Right. So anyway, Joe, what do you think about the left-handed pitcher? I know we talked about Crochet like 1,000 times, but what do you think?
Yeah, it looks more and more like he's going to be traded. Now, at first I thought about this, and he signed through 2026. So that would be like, well, why would it's not like somebody like that's going to be a free agent this year that the White Sox would be eager to, make a deal to get something back for him.
It's because they're in a fire sale, basically. They're selling. Go on.
Of course. But I think the fact that he signed through 26 would be attractive for, a team that trades for him, because, this is not a rental situation. He gets traded to a good team. He signed through 2026. That's a couple more seasons that somebody would potentially have him for. So I think he's a very attractive piece, because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball this year, and he's just doing amazing and racking up the strikeouts. But again, this is not somebody who's going to be a free agent in 3 months and is just going to be maybe somebody that you can rent for a postseason run. This is somebody that you can hold on to and build a pitching staff around for a couple of years. So very attractive idea there. And I really think there's going to be teams that go after him. And I don't have a team in mind, to be honest with you. The Yankees certainly could be one of them. I've even heard the Mets mentioned in talks there. So plenty of other teams in the mix. And I think somebody's going to go after him. And again, just the way the White Sox are going, and like you said, fire sale, I think he will get traded at the deadline. It's just a matter of to where.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I got a dang fly on the thing, but okay. Miley Cyrus, is that you? A fly on the wall?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna move on to another White Sox pitcher. Now, all you Bravo, Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen and Don't Be Tardy lovers out there, you know him as Brielle Bierman's ex-boyfriend, and we in the MLB world know him as Mr. Michael Kopech from the White Sox, right-handed pitcher. Now, you want to overlook his 5.31 ERA. He can throw straight up gasoline, man. Mm-hmm. The flamethrower started out with the Sox as a top prospect, but has fizzled down to comfortability lately. He can throw the pitches up to 101 miles an hour and can give you innings in relief. So this is a guy that's you don't have to worry about his arm because he's not a Paul Skeens starter, but he can give you 3 to 4 innings of just throwing straight up gas, which is what you want in a relief pitcher. And the high efficiency athlete could be either a setup man or a closer on many teams, as he's proven that with the White Sox. If a contending team is scouting, keep your eye on Kopech. The 25-year-old gives it 100% every day, and you could count on him to be a star, just not with the White Sox. So, Joe, what do you think about Kopech? And now he's a flame-throwing right-handed pitcher too, but he's not a starter, so at least he can protect his arm a little more.
Right. He used to be a starter, didn't he? Wasn't he starting games for the White Sox even just a couple of years ago?
As a young prospect he did, and then it didn't work out, so they put him in the bullpen, and he's done better there.
All right. Yeah, again, a guy that would certainly help a lot of teams. Now, he signed through 25, so that you would still have at least one season with him, and not necessarily a rental. And I think you had talked a week or so ago about a potential, the Yankees being a potential landing spot for him. There again, I don't have a specific place for him to go, but I think he's going to be gone too. It's just a matter of when and where.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's move on to another White Sox guy, my oh my, or OMG in this case with the Mets, another White Sox pitcher. Actually, not a pitcher, he's an outfielder by the name of Luis Robert Jr. Robert Jr. is above the current trade market. Entering the trade deadline with 3 years left on your contract is risky, and going for it on 4th and 1 from midfield late in the game and not punting the football shows that. Last year, he had MVP-like numbers, hitting 32 homers and 20 swipe bags. His high production continued until a strained hip flexor canceled 2 months of Robert's 2024 season. His biggest concern is his scary past, which includes injuries and a total salary of $59 million over 3 years. Is somebody willing to trade for that ballooning or bloated salary? That will be the question moving forward in the trade deadline. So, Joe, what do you think about a guy like Luis Robert Jr., who's talented but is injury prone and has a ballooning contract?
Yeah, this is a tough one. To me, Robert represents what's wrong with the White Sox. This was a team that was like the Astros, Orioles, Reds, all those teams that have built with young players, Pirates now even we could talk about and put in that mix. And the White Sox for the longest time were like the hottest prospect team with guys like Robert, with Eloy Jimenez and people like that. And they were going to be the next, Astros again, and what we have with the Orioles now. And it just never panned out. I mean, these guys kept getting hurt and different things happened. And, now it seems like the White Sox are in a more of a rebuilding position than they were before these guys came in. So not a good situation there. And again, can Robert help somebody? Of course he can. But again, there's years left on the contract and it's a very high contract. And so you're going to have some decisions to make there. It's not, again, like this is a guy maybe you can rent for the rest of the season to try to, get you into the playoffs or get you far in the playoffs. So this is a tough one. Again, if the opportunity is right and if the price is right, again, he's somebody that can help your team. But again, like you said, there's also that injury factor. Does he play for you for a month and then get hurt and then you lose out that way? There's a lot of risk there that I don't know if teams are going to be willing to take.
Right, exactly. And they're still going to be one of the hottest team prospects, again, 2.0 in the same position. As you said, they're rebuilding.
Right.
Oh, number 4, we're going to move on to Jack Flaherty, the Tigers' right-handed pitcher, with no relation to former New York Yankees catcher and now broadcast announcer John Flaherty. The Tigers pitcher roared onto the scene as one of the league's best. Now, this guy, unlike the White Sox guys, Right now, he is the premier rental arm in the deadline as he only signed a now bargain 1-year deal worth $14 million. With 1-year contracts being not as popular in the MLB as they are like in the NHL or the NFL, the right-handed pitcher proved he could pitch successfully while comfortably living off the salary. But will his comfortability level be tested to higher waters if some contender wants him for a bigger deal? Nevertheless, Flaherty was a tremendously cost-effective signing for the Tigers. He is the best rental starting pitcher in the trade deadline market. So, Joe, what do you think about Flaherty being one of the best rental trades in the deadline? I know he's comfortably living off that 1-year deal, but are his waters going to be tested to new heights if a contending team wants him to offer him a bigger deal than just a 1-year deal with the Tigers?
Yeah, because of all those things you just mentioned, I think he's a prime candidate to be traded. Again, I don't have an idea as to where. Just anybody can use a very good starting pitcher there. But because, again, it was a 1-year situation, a good deal, again, a fair contract there, not overpriced. I think he's a prime candidate to be a rental somewhere and perhaps get signed by whoever, picks him up eventually, maybe a little bit longer term. But he's had a great year this year, and I think he can really help somebody, heading towards the postseason here. So I highly believe that he will not be on the Tigers after July 30th.
Like I said, could be with the Orioles, Yankees, Dodgers, Phillies, you name it. Any
All
contender.
of those teams, it could get any of these guys,
The list just goes on and on with this. I mean, it really does.
Right.
But anyway, let's move on to probably one of the best names in baseball I've heard in a long time. Tarik Skubal, the Tigers' left-handed pitcher. I'm going to try not to laugh because that's obviously the guy's name, and you don't want to make fun of a guy's name like that. So,
especially if he's a Cy Young candidate.
Right, exactly. He is a Cy Young candidate. He's getting the last laugh. So, it's surprising to see the projected AL Cy Young favorite on the trade deadline. If he does get traded, he will be a steal rental player for any contending team that wants him. The Orioles, yes. The Yankees, most definitely. And the Dodgers, no doubt. Despite being one of the premier left-handers in the league, he is in doubt about signing his extension. So, Joe, what do you think about Skubal, who is also another rental signee in his trade options? Again, the sky's the limit for him that he could be a rental arm for another team or sign a long deal. But what do you think compares and contrasts him from Flaherty?
Well, a couple of things that I saw. First of all, I would be really upset if I was a Tigers fan. You got a guy that you could build your whole pitching staff around here, and they're talking about getting rid of him. Now, from what I saw, and here's the main difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought Skubal was signed through 2026. So he's still got a few years left where, what's his name? Flaherty is a pure rental. So Skubal is another one of those guys that you pick him up, you got him for another few years. Now, let me go back to the teaser that I mentioned before, and something that I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but from what I read, it's on the table. Now, I heard a rumor about the Orioles being very interested in him and willing to give up some guy that we've talked about being the number one prospect in Major League Baseball. I heard his name being thrown around. We're talking about Jackson Holliday.
Jackson Holliday, yep.
Potentially going to the Tigers in a package for Skubal. Now, again, that might not be a wise move if Holliday, ever plays up to his potential. But, I mean, it's not like the Orioles are short on prospects here. And to me, if I'm the Orioles, I would do something like that. You have a chance to win the World Series this year. and the next few years. And again, you got Skubal, if I'm right, he's signed for another couple of years. So even if you don't win it this year, you can imagine a pitching staff with him and Corbin Burns on it. I mean, that could be, crazy. So again, would I want to give up Jackson Holiday? Of course not. But if I can get myself in this situation, and again, with all the prospects and the talent that I already have, but with other prospects that they still have that we haven't seen yet, that might not be a bad idea for the Orioles to do. So we'll keep our eyes open on that one. Again, I hate for the Tigers fans that they're even considering trading a Cy Young candidate that's still got some time left on a contract. But let's keep our eyes on this one and see if it actually happens. It's not like the Tigers are really going anywhere. So,
Right. And I think Holiday has a better opportunity, though, to thrive with Detroit in this situation, though.
Actually, you're right. It would be a better opportunity with him because he'd have a lot less competition there, and he can probably get in the lineup rather quickly. Again, they can build an offense around him in Detroit. So that decision makes sense. And again, it's not like they said it was going to happen, but it was brought up, and I don't know how serious it was, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. And it'd be kind of crazy if it did happen. So stay tuned.
Now, Jackson Holiday, his father was Roy Holiday, right? And the one who passed away, right?
No, I think it was
Matt Holiday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I remember Matt Holiday. He was with the Yankees.
He played with the Yankees. He was in the World Series with the Rockies when they made it that one year. So, he played with Tulowitzki and those guys in Colorado. So I'm pretty sure it's Matt Holiday's son.
Right. And just to be clear, driving to the top ends, I wanted to make sure that I clarified that right, so nobody would get upset, obviously, because, we don't want to make anybody that was a Roy Holiday fan upset, but we get it.
Right. Well, honest mistake, no problem.
Yeah. So let's actually move on to a reliever that is a hot commodity on the market right now. We're going to talk about Angels right-hander reliever Carlos Estevez. As the reliever of this month in June, Estevez should seek trade interest from many teams. Again, you could say this is another why would the Angels trade him, but let's listen in closer. The closer is among 13 consecutive scoreless appearances. Despite a tough 2 weeks in mid-April, he's been striking back of the Angels bullpen. With a 2.79 ERA in 29 innings, he is holding batters down like the game has never seen. After saving 31 contests last year, he compiles a 16-19 record and will be a free agent. He will be another strong rental player. Now, Joe, this is a rental player, as we talked about. As a reliever the month of June, and with 13 scoreless finishes, you're probably saying, why would the Angels trade? Now, this one makes more sense than Skubal, because the Angels are kind of like 15 games below 500, and maybe they think they can get some prospects back in return that can help them immediately and decide what to do with them beyond. So what do you think about this trade? What do you think about his trading chances, as Estevez says?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. And like you said, for the Angels, it would make sense. They're not going anywhere. They, can definitely get some good prospects for him. So I think it makes sense for a team to pick him up and get some relief help. And it would certainly make sense for the Angels to do that and get something in return for him when, again, it's, he would be able to walk after the season anyway. So I think it would be smart. I would be a lot more surprised if he did not get traded than if he did.
Right, that's true. So, anyway, we're going to move on to number 7, Angels outfielder Kevin Pillar. Not to be confused with Kevin Millar, who played for the Red Sox, who got robbed of a home run on opening day 2005 against the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. But anyway, Pillar has resurged this season since being with the Los Angeles Angels. Now, this is a much older guy. The 35-year-old was let go by the, guess what, Chicago White Sox. I know, 17 games into the season. After Mike Trout was hurt with the Angels, an opportunity came knocking, and Pilar delivered. He has batted .287 with 6 homers and 147 plate attempts. The outfielder recently told USA Today's Bob Nightingale that this season is a good chance to be his last in Anaheim. His hitting projection should land him on a 4th or 5th string outfielder with a contending team. This one's a little odd to me, Joe. What do you think about this one? Because he's aging. He already got let go by the White Sox, and now you expect the Angels to somebody to bait on him or bite on somebody like him. And the best you could do is probably get mid prospects for him. What do you think of this trade with the Angels?
Yeah, I agree. This is a tough one. The fact that he's been around for a while, ex-Met, by the way, played a couple of years for the Mets. But, I'm sure he wouldn't be cheap. So would he be worth it? I mean, he certainly can help anybody. He's a scrappy player, good guy. But he might come at a little bit of a higher price and, definitely be a rental. It's a tough call. Again, I could maybe see him ending up somewhere. Again, it's not like he's probably not going to be with the Angels next year anyway. So, and if you can get something for him, then even if it's like mid-tier, it's better than nothing, right? So I'm sure the Angels wouldn't mind making a trade if it's right, and it would have to be right. But and I'm sure Pilar wouldn't mind playing on a contender, going into postseason or something like that. This one, to me, is 50-50. It could happen. Wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. But, I guess we'll have to see on that one. So I'm not too sure about that. And I'd call it 50-50 right now.
Like I said, he's risky bait, and who's going to bite on it? That's
right.
what it is.
Right.
And it's pretty funny. I mentioned risky bait, who's going to bite on him when we talked about Mike Trout. If anybody got that reference there.
Well, it totally went over my head.
Anyway, we're going to end with number 8, Josh. You can ring my bell. Ring my bell. Marlins first baseman. And why do we always talk about him, Joe? I'll tell you why. Because while Ben Rice has been shining as a rookie, having a veteran presence like Bell wouldn't hurt in the Yankees either. He could be inconsistent, but he is a perfect fit at Yankee Stadium to do what, Joe?
Pop it up.
Pop the ball up right at the short porch in the right field at Yankee Stadium. He also earned a solid $16.5 million this year. That's a good amount of money for a 31-year-old. But it said with the Yankees, he would probably be making less than that, which is $8.1 million a year. So almost half what he'd be making now. So, Joe, do you think that this veteran first baseman could help out the Yankees? We already know he could pop it up, but what else could he do?
I was going to say he's been very good at popping it up lately, his at-bats with the Marlins. I said this on our show last week. I think the Yankees would be the ideal landing spot for him simply because of the short porch there. And a player or a hitter like him is made for Yankee Stadium. So I think that's the best opportunity for him. I think that would be a smart pick for the Yankees or a pick up for the Yankees. So I could see it happening. I mean, if not, I wouldn't be surprised if Bell goes elsewhere. He's been around a lot of different places. And again, it's not like the Marlins are going anywhere. So I would not be surprised if that's somebody that the Yankees picked up, and that's it. And before you say your piece here, and I know it's we're getting late here, but I'm also curious before we go off here, what your feelings of the All-Star game is. We didn't talk about that, and what your home run derby and All-Star game. We could say our piece real quick on that.
I didn't really see the home run derby, but the All-Star game, I saw a little bit of it, and I think it was pretty cool. I mean, these guys at the end of the day, they're all friends in the major leagues when they're not playing against each other and playing in an exhibition like that gives you an incentive to get home field advantage in the World Series is really cool. It's in July. It was in Texas this year, so they could dress up all cowboy-y. Perfect
Right.
venue for an all-American sport like baseball to play in an all-American state.
Right. We won't mention the idiot that predicted Pete Alonso to win the home run derby. And let's just say it was not you. So that leaves one other person on this podcast who predicted that. Now, his performance was not as bad as Ingrid Andress's national anthem performance, but we won't talk about that. She should never be able to perform live again, ever. But yeah, Alonso's performance was very disappointing. I thought at least he'd be in the running. I thought he'd win it. But again, fun to watch that. And, you know, the All-Star game was good and not great, but, you know, good. I enjoyed it. And I was just curious to see what you thought about it.
Yeah, and to people who say, look, we're not watching it again because the ratings are awful and everything, and like it's like go eat cheese from a spray can. It's still a great All-Star game and everything. They're baseball's going through a transition. They're trying to jump on board with the older generation to the younger generation. I feel like they've accomplished that. They started that with the bigger with the last year with the pitch clock and the bigger bases, and you see it being more enhanced this year too.
Yeah, and I always say this, and it'll always be the case. I refuse to watch any other All-Star game because they're fake. Baseball is the only real All-Star game that you get. You know, none of this two-hand touch garbage in football. You know, in hockey, they're scoring 1,000 goals a game. In basketball, they don't play defense. You know, in baseball, the pitcher's still throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. The batter's still trying to steal a base. The guys, I saw Trey Turner dive for a ball up the middle yesterday. They're going all out, you know, and they're swinging for the fences. Baseball is the only real, true All-Star game and the only one worth watching, in my opinion.
We'll see. Football, the reason why they went to the model that they did is because the regular game was already dying out to begin with. That's why they changed it to two-hand touch, because nobody was interested in the real game either.
Right.
So, but anyway, it looks like we come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you on social media on Wednesday, July 17th, 2024? How fast is time going?
How fast time goes. As a teacher, I want the summer to go as slow as possible. So hopefully it will. But anyway, Twitter X, Joe Dal Sports. You can find my opinions and tidbits on there.
Yep. And then you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. And you can also catch me here, not just on this show every Wednesday night on Driving to the Top Productions, but also every Tuesday night where driving to our producer Adam, who say a prayer for him, guys, because he's in the hospital right now. But once he gets better, every Tuesday night he does open mic night where we just talk about whatever's on the table. We get heated, we get rowdy, but it's civil and fun at the end. And anyway, thank you guys very much for listening. And don't forget to like, comment, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell for notifications on our YouTube page, Driving to the Top Productions. We're trying to grow every day. And to tune in to the next episode of the Subway Conversation Chat, please tune in to our YouTube page, Driving to the Top Productions, our Twitch stream, our X stream, or wherever you get your podcasts. Every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. here on Driving to the Top Productions. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. You've been listening to the Subway Conversation Chat with Jamie and Joe. See you next week, folks.
Have an excellent week, everybody.